When Xiao Yan clenched his fist, a terrifying suction force immediately surged out in all directions. Finally, one could see wave after wave of majestic purple-black flames transforming into numerous fire pillars that whizzed to Xiao Yan's palm. Compress. Xiao Yan's eyes hardened as he softly cried out while he observed the majestic flame that had gathered in his hand. His cry sounded, and the energy above Xiao Yan's palm suddenly began to rotate at a high speed. A fire swirl, 100 feet large, was formed above Xiao Yan's palm. Numerous fire pillars continued to pour into this swirl. The swirl rotated at an increasingly terrifying rate. In the end, it transformed into a purple-black light. A deep rumbling sound continued to spread, causing the space to form waves of fluctuations. When the swirl's rotating speed had reached a certain level, the 100-foot-large fire swirl also began to shrink. After half an hour or so, the swirl was only the size of a palm. However, this was not what Xiao Yan required. His hand was clenched, and the swirl once again increased its rotation speed. Zoom zoom. A terrifying ripple spread from the fire swirl. The fire glow suddenly erupted into a wave of dazzling light a moment later. Immediately, a wave of zoom sounds appeared. The light scattered, and a baby fist-sized purple-black bead appeared in Xiao Yan's palm. This bead was purple-black in color with some vague, strange lines on its surface. There was a fierce flame burning and churning in this somewhat transparent bead. Xiao Yan sighed in relief as he looked at the purple-black bead that had formed. Cold perspiration appeared on his forehead. From the looks of it, the formation of this thing was not as easy as one imagined it to be. This kind of bead formed from the agglomeration of flames was called fire lightning bead. Xiao Yan had discovered it in some of the scrolls Yao Lao had left behind. This thing could be considered quite unique. A special technique was required to compress a flame to the extreme. Finally, it would form this bead shape. The creation of this thing had an extremely harsh requirement on one's spiritual control because if one failed to find an equilibrium when suppressing it, the flame would explode. The backlash at that time would be quite severe. If Xiao Yan's strength had not suddenly soared, it was likely that he would not have dared to have attempted to create this so-called fire lightning bead. Although this fire lightning bead was a little troublesome and dangerous to create, its strength was something that need not be doubted. The strength of this thing was determined by the quality of the ingredients that were used to create it. The might of the 3,000 burning flame was something that was needless to say. Currently, these flames had agglomerated from the vast and mighty strength of the stars. It was the perfect ingredient to be used to create the fire lightning bead. Based on Xiao Yan's guess, the fire lightning bead that he had created with the 3,000 burning flame could blast even an elite Dou Zong into an extremely miserable state if it caught him by surprise and he could not defend in time. If Xiao Yan were to suddenly use this attack when exchanging blows with others in the future, it would definitely end up with a surprising effect. Xiao Yan took out a wooden box from his storage ring after having successfully created this fire lightning bead, after which he carefully placed it into the box. This thing could not be stored in a jade box. Otherwise, the cold chi emitted from a jade box would destroy its equilibrium. At that time, it might end up exploding in his hand before he could throw it. That would be a little comical. Xiao Yan did not stop after having successfully refined a fire lightning bead. The purple-black flames were perfect to refine. It was extremely rare to find a flame that contained the majestic strength of the stars in the outside world. Xiao Yan would naturally only stop after refining all that he could. At that time, even if he were to meet an elite Dou Zong, even someone of old Mu Gu's strength would likely be blasted into a horrible state if he were to throw over a dozen fire lightning beads. Xiao Yan quietly laughed after having made up his mind in his heart. He clenched his hand, and a powerful suction force once again surged out. When Xiao Yan halted this wild absorption, this star region, that had been dead quiet for a long time, once again became lively. Firestorms whistled around. A terrifying ripple caused even space itself to form some dark black lines. Due to the powerful strength of the fire lightning beads created from the 3,000 burning flame, Xiao Yan continuously refined them in a happy and tireless manner. This creation of fire lightning beads was exhausting. Even with Xiao Yan's strength, his energy was exhausted after creating around 18 of them, and he was no longer able to continue forming them. Xiao Yan immediately sat down and trained upon sensing the situation. Half an hour later, most of the Dou Qi within his exhausted body had been recovered. While Xiao Yan Dou Qi was recovering, he was surprised to discover that the current flame mantra had reached the D-class high level. Its ability to absorb and refine energy had also soared. In the past, Xiao Yan required half a day in order to recover his Dou Qi. However, he only required less than an hour now. This was part of the benefits shared by the evolution of the flame mantra. Moreover, with the uniqueness of flame mantra, an ordinary D-class high-level Qi method was far inferior to it. Based on Xiao Yan's guess, the current flame mantra could be considered the best Qi method below the Tian class. Of course, it would be a different story when it came to the inherited Qi methods of some ancient factions or clans. One example was the so-called Gu clan of Xun'er. After having been passed down for so many years, it was likely that no one would believe that it did not possess some Qi methods or Dou skills that could deter others. Nevertheless, the current flame mantra had gradually revealed its towering strength. The Dou Qi that had been refined from the flame mantra and the strengthening of the heavenly flames would be extremely powerful. Just by relying on this alone without any other Dou skills, it was likely that even other experts at the peak of the Dou Zong class would be no match against Xiao Yan in a head-on attack. Xiao Yan involuntarily recalled First Elder Tian, she from the Ice River Valley when he thought of this. Back then, Xiao Yan had to use all of his tactics in order to face such an expert. However, if they were to meet again, Xiao Yan guaranteed that First Elder Tian she would not even have the opportunity to attack. Xiao Yan felt intoxicated in his heart for a moment before he once again stood up. He wanted to create some more fire lightning beads, only to be stunned to discover that there was no longer much strength within the remaining purple-black flames. The fire lightning beads created by this kind of flame would not only be a lot weaker, but they could also not be preserved for long. When the time was up, they would automatically disappear. Thus, they did not possess much value. After seeing this, Xiao Yan could only helplessly shake his head. He abandoned the thought in his heart of wanting to refine 100 of them. His eyes swept over the interior of the star region before walking to the area where the spatial door was located. It was time to leave. While Xiao Yan was refining the fire lightning beads, he was unaware that his actions had caused the current pill tower to descend into an anxious state. Almost all of the experts from the pill tower had already stepped out at this moment. Numerous grave and anxious eyes were gathered on the sky. An intense distortion had appeared there. There was a vague heat spreading from it, causing the temperature around the pill tower to rise. The people from the pill tower were clearly aware what place in the sky this was. It was the star region that had become forbidden grounds of the pill tower. Everyone still remembered the miserable manner of Xin Kongzi when he had fled from it half a year ago. Even with his strength, he was unable to remain inside the star region for long. Even less need to be said about other people. Moreover, if the flame within the star region were to completely erupt, Holy Pill City would likely be turned into a ruined city of death in an instant. However, this star region, which did not have display any activity for half a year, suddenly began to show signs of erupting. Even the seal appeared as though it was unable to endure any longer. This caused everyone within Holy Pill City to be terribly frightened. Everyone below the level of a Dou Huang, withdraw. The remaining experts should prepare to form a formation to protect Holy Pill City. Xin Kongzi's trio stood in the sky. Their expressions were solemn as they issued orders. They could sense that the star region had become unusually violent today. If it were to erupt at such a time, it would cause a great disaster. This kind of disaster was something that even the pill tower would not be able to endure. Xinyu, Tian Lazy, let's strengthen the seal. After issuing the order, Xin Kongzi's eyes solemnly looked at the two others beside him as he spoke in a deep voice. Yes. Xinyu and Tian Lazy nodded with grave faces. They clearly understood the destructive strength that would rain down should the star region erupt. Little fairy doctor, do we need to leave? Tian Hunja, on one of the tops of a building around the pill tower, looked at the distorted space with a slight frown. He asked the little fairy doctor a question. The current little fairy doctor still wore a white dress. However, her face appeared much skinnier compared to before. The little fairy doctor shook her head upon hearing Tian Hunja's question. She softly replied, I want to wait for him. Ugh. Tian Hunja softly sighed. He glanced at Xian by the side, who was rubbing her head in distress. Xian was continuously grabbing a thread of hair and playing with the golden light seal in her hand. She muttered, there is still no problem with the dragon seal. Xiao Yan definitely should be fine, but why has there been no news of him after such a long time? She secretly glanced at the little fairy doctor by her side while she uttered these words. The little fairy doctor's eyes were firmly fixed on the rippling space in the sky. Strengthen the seal. Xian Kongzi sternly cried out as he stood in the sky. 3 powerful glows rushed into the empty space. There was a circular, invisible ripple that quietly spread. With Xian Kongzi's trio unleashing all of their strength, the rippling space began to gradually stabilize. However, before they could sigh in relief, they suddenly saw the space at the exit of the star region suddenly fluctuate in a strange manner. Immediately, a 10-foot-large crack slowly appeared in front of the dull expressions of Xian Kongzi's group. It's over. The expressions of Xian Kongzi's trio instantly became unusually ugly as they watched this spatial line strangely form. Bang! His voice had just sounded when the crack suddenly trembled. A monstrous purple-black flame swept out like a storm. Holy Pill City descended into panic at this moment. Establish the Great Formation. Xian Kongzi's face was green as he furiously cried out. Understood. The many experts from the Pill Tower cried out in unison. Numerous powerful Dou Chis shot toward the sky like pillars of light at this moment. Cough, cough, this damn flame. Return. Just when the experts from the Pill Tower were preparing to form a formation, a skinny figure slowly appeared amid the monstrous purple-black flame. Even a faint curse was emitted. Even though this voice was not loud, Xian Kongzi's trio in the sky, as well as the little fairy doctor's group on the buildings, instantly stiffened. When that curse appeared, the purple-black flame that had launched out of the spatial crack, like a volcano, immediately became sluggish, after which it swiftly pulled back in front of many stunned eyes. Within the blink of an eye, it slid back into the fissure. The sea of fire that had caused Holy Pill City to descend into a panic had disappeared in such a comical fashion. The chaos around the city had also come to a halt at this moment. Numerous stunned eyes stared at the spatial crack in the sky. Of course, more accurately speaking, at the skinny figure standing next to the spatial crack. That is, Xiao Yan? He is still alive? Oh gosh, how is that possible? Why is it those flames that even the great heads from the Pill Tower could not handle obeyed his words? After the stunned feeling lasted for a moment, someone finally recognized this star-like figure, who the hot topic of everyone within Holy Pill City half a year ago. In an instant, numerous private conversations rapidly sprung up within the city. Even with Xiao Yan's calmness, he felt a little weird being stared at by these strange gazes. He raised his head and smiled at the stunned faces of Xian Kongzi's trio in the sky. He asked, 3 association heads, how are you? Xiao Yan? You are really still alive? The faces of Xian Kongzi's trio were filled shock and disbelief, especially Xian Kongzi's face. He was someone who had personally entered the star region and understood the cruel environment within it extremely well. Even he did not dare to remain for long within it, yet Xiao Yan had been able to remain inside it for 8 months without being hurt. Xiao Yan could only shrug his shoulders when he saw the stunned eyes of those 3. His hand rubbed over the spatial door, and it slowly disappeared. The high temperature that had spread over Holy Pill City also suddenly disappeared. Your aura. Xian Kongzi's trio were no ordinary people. They gradually recovered after their initial surprise. Their eyes carefully swept over Xiao Yan, and the surprise in them became even richer. The aura of the current Xiao Yan was vastly different compared to when he had entered the star region back then. You have subdued the 3,000 burning flame? Xian Kongzi's eyes flickered. He suddenly seemed to have thought of something as he gently inhaled a breath of cool air and inquired. He, old Xian isn't thinking of taking it back, are you? Xiao Yan laughed and asked. I am fine if you have resolved that threat. Xian Kongzi could not resist sighing in relief when he saw that Xiao Yan did not deny it. Immediately, he smacked his mouth and said, However, I did not expect you to subdue the 3,000 burning flame. The stubbornness of that fellow is something that the three of us witnessed. Xiao Yan smiled. He was just about to speak when a white figure suddenly rushed over from a short distance away. Before he could recover, it had already rushed to his side. Icy cool hands grabbed his arm. A pretty and alluring face was currently filled with a joy that could not be hidden. There was a little redness in her pretty eyes. She appeared extremely attractive and would really catch the affection of others. Relax, I'm fine. Xiao Yan revealed a warm smile on his face. He softly comforted the little fairy doctor as he looked at her. She was grabbing his hand without speaking while staring at him with a pair of red, pretty eyes. Hee, I have already said that he is definitely fine. My dragon seal will not be wrong. Ziyan's laughing voice was also transmitted from behind the little fairy doctor. However, Xiao Yan could still hear the sigh of relief and joy within her tone. Old Mr. Yao, I have caused all of you to worry. Xiao Yan patted the little fairy doctor's icy cool hand, turned his head, and spoke with a smile to Tian Hunja, who had followed close behind. Tian Hunja smiled and shook his head. His eyes swept over Xiao Yan and shock flashed across them. He could sense that Xiao Yan's current strength was already at the 9-star Dou Zong level. When Xiao Yan had stepped into the star region back then, he had been around the level of a 4-star Dou Zong. Within less than a year, his strength had soared to such an extent. After having followed Xiao Yan for such a long time, Tian Hunja was clearly aware of his fighting abilities. When he was at the 4-star Dou Zong level, he had been able to defeat Tian Shi, an expert at the peak of the Dou Zong class. Now that he had reached the 9-star Dou Zong level, it was likely that no one within the Dou Zong class was a match for him. Even some of the weaker Dou Zuns might not gain an upper hand against him. Ugh, your training speed. It is really frightening. If this continues, it is likely that it will not be difficult for you to break through to the Dou Zong class. Tian Hunja bitterly laughed in his heart and sighed. After which, he glanced at little fairy doctor and said, The one who has been most worried about you is her. While you were missing, she constantly thought of entering the star region. If the 3 association heads had not stopped her, she would have forcefully barged in. Hearing this, Xiao Yan's eyes looked at the little fairy doctor, who was skinnier compared to before. A complicated emotion surged into his heart at this moment. The most difficult thing to accept in this world was the favor of a beauty. The little fairy doctor had left the Chuyun Empire with him to head to the Black Corner region and had followed him to the Central Plains. She had never uttered any complaints despite traveling such great distances. Although Xiao Yan had helped her resolve her woeful poison body, it was still difficult to make up for this favor of having her follow him all the time. The little fairy doctor appeared to have sensed the change in Xiao Yan's eyes. This caused her to feel a little panic. She was like a shocked deer as she released her hands and softly said, Everyone was worried about you. Do not do such dangerous things in the future. Xiao Yan nodded with a smile. He returned the emotion within his heart as swept his eyes around. When he saw the large lineup of the pill tower around him, he involuntarily laughed. After which, he cupped his hands to Xin Kongzi's trio and said, I'm sorry to have caused the pill tower trouble. It is fine as long as you are fine. I have suffered much pestering from Xian Yi during this period of time. Moreover, if something happened to you in our pill tower's territory, Yao Qin would definitely have come and found trouble when he escapes in the future. Xin Kongzi waved his hand and laughed. Teacher. The corner of Xiao Yan's mouth was curled when he heard this name. A cold and stern expression flashed across his eyes. He had successfully obtained the 3,000 burning flame. It was time to rescue Teacher from the hands of the Hall of Souls. Seeing Xiao Yan's somewhat cold and stern face, Xianyi appeared to have thought of something. She softly said, This is not a place to talk. Let's enter the pill tower. We have also obtained some information about where Yao Chan has been imprisoned while you were in the star region. Xiao Yan's heart suddenly leaped when he heard her words. He quickly suppressed the anxiety in his heart and heavily nodded. Based on the information that we have obtained, the Hall of Souls thought of transferring Yao Chen when it dispatched people after you back then. However, due to the matters of the pill gathering, that transfer ended up being delayed. However, during the half a year you were missing, they have possessed sufficient time to shift Yao Chen from the western region's Ming City. Xin Kongzi spoke with a grave expression in a meeting room within the pill tower. He has indeed be shifted, huh? Xiao Yan's expression sank, and his fists were slightly clenched. In that case, may I know where the Hall of Souls has imprisoned teacher? Xiao Yan's eyes were searing hot as they stared at Xin Kongzi. The information gathering of the pill tower was much better than the 4 members of his group randomly searching around. With their help, it would definitely be much easier to do things. There's some clues, but it has not been verified. We still need some time in order to obtain the exact information. Xin Yu slowly said. However, there is no need for you to be anxious. With our current information, it should be quite soon before we can investigate everything properly. Xiao Yan slightly nodded. He could only rely on the information he receives from the pill tower at this moment. You need not be overly worried. The Hall of Souls has great use for Yao Chan. Unless they have no other choice, they will not take his life. Xin Kongzi comforted, appearing to be unwilling to let Xiao Yan be overly worried. Yes, thank you, association heads. Additionally, if we manage to obtain information, we can only rely on your abilities. Should we lend our hands, we will definitely anger the Hall of Souls and a big battle might erupt. The current pill tower is no match for the Hall of Souls. Therefore, Xin Kongzi was quiet for a moment before he softly spoke. It is already enough that the pill tower is helping me find the location where the Hall of Souls has imprisoned teacher. Xiao Yan will feel bad if I get even more help. Xiao Yan did not feel anything with regards to this point. Xin Kongzi's trio were the great heads of the pill tower. Every word and action they made represented the pill tower. Moreover, the Hall of Souls was extremely terrifying. If a big battle were to erupt, the implications would be incredible. Hence, even Xin Kongzi's group would not dare to openly declare war with the Hall of Souls unless they had no other choice. Ugh, you can rest assured. No matter what, the Hall of Souls is an enemy of my pill tower. We will do our best to help you. Xin Kongzi replied while feeling a little sorry. Xiao Yan smiled, cupped his hands together and said, In that case, I shall thank old Xin first. You should rest in the pill. After chatting with the 3 great heads a little longer, Xiao Yan's group finally bid them farewell and returned to their room. Has anything happened during this period of time? Xiao Yan randomly asked after having entered the room. Due to the Yi clan having many matters to deal with, Dou Zong could only return to Yi City with Xian Lan in disappointment after waiting hopelessly for a long time. The little fairy doctor politely informed him. Yes. Xiao Yan slightly nodded. The current Yi clan was in a bad state. Being the first elder of the clan, Dou Zong was unable to wait around Holy Pill City. Being able to wait for about half a year was enough to let Xiao Yan know Dou Zong was sincere. Additionally, people from the profound Xian sect came to find trouble once during this period of time. Their so-called junior sect leader and 2 elders went missing within the pill realm together. It is likely that they had met with some mishap. They think that you are the one responsible. Hence, they would frequently come to find trouble. However, Chowing was a witness and said that the one who had killed the people from the profound Xian sect was old Mu Gu. Adding in Pill Tower's mediation, the other party unwillingly left. The little fairy doctor slightly frowned and said, However, from the way I see it, they still hate you. If they were to obtain news that you left the star region in one piece, they will definitely come and find trouble. What a bunch of stubborn people. Xiao Yan knit his eyebrows. He immediately waved his hand and said, Just leave them be. If they really come looking for trouble, there is no need for us to be polite. These people are not good people either. Yes. Xiao Yan sat in a chair. His eyes swept over the little fairy doctor's lovely body and surprise flashed within them. He said, Your aura seems to have also become much stronger during this period of time. The poison Dan in my body possesses a miraculous effect to my training. I have improved quite significantly during this 1 year's time. The little fairy doctor curled her mouth into a smile as she replied, What significantly? Ugh, your current strength has likely reached the peak of a 3-star Dou Zong. With this training speed, it is likely that very few people within the Dou Zong class can compete with you. A completely controlled woeful poison body is indeed terrifying. Tian Hunja, by her side, bitterly laughed. His tone was also quite complicated. His strength had also advanced a little during this period of time. However, it was far inferior when compared to the little fairy doctor's increase. Peak of the 3-star Dou Zong. Surprise flashed across Xiao Yan's face. If the current little fairy doctor's woeful poison body were to completely erupt, it was likely that she could even fight against the valley chief of the Ice River Valley. This woeful poison body was indeed mysterious. Old Mr. Yao, need not belittle yourself. You have stabilized yourself at the peak of a 1-star Dou Zong within a short year. Breaking through to a 2-star Dou Zong, or even recovering to your previous peak, is merely a matter of time. The little fairy doctor smiled as she responded. Difficult. Being able to recover to the strength of a Dou Zong has already exceeded my expectations. I was merely at the level of a 5-star Dou Zong back at my peak. Tian bitterly laughed. He naturally understood just how difficult it was for him to recover to his peak. Every level within the Dou Zong class was unusually difficult to advance to. Spending decades or even centuries was not a rare occurrence. This reason was why he felt shocked and envious at the little fairy doctor's training speed. That may not be certain. Xiao Yan's finger gently knocked on the table. He mused for a moment before slowly saying, one will indeed need quite a long time to return to one's peak through normal training. However, other methods can drastically reduce this period of time. You mean, relying on medicinal pills? Tian Hunja's shriveled hand tightened around the teacup he was holding. His bitterly smiling face had a fiery heat flashing over it. At his level, only medicinal pills that had reached the 8th tier could aid him. May I know if old Mr. Yao has ever heard of a medicinal pill called the fungus green pill? Xiao Yan smiled and asked. Fungus green pill? Tian Hunja was startled. The fiery heat within his eyes surged. An excited expression also flashed across his face. The fungus green pill rumored to be able to allow one whose strength has deteriorated to return to one's peak? Cuckoo, the fungus green pill does indeed have some use. However, it cannot allow you to return to your peak strength as you have described. That is merely a rumor. Based on my estimates, if old Mr. Yao consumes this medicinal pill, you should be able to recover to the 3-star Dou Zong level. Xiao Yan smiled and shook his head as he cleared up some myths. 3-star, that is also sufficient. Tian Hunja was not disappointed. Being able to leap from 1 star to 3 stars was also an extremely swift improvement. However, this fungus green pill is a Tier 8 medicinal pill. It is extremely troublesome to refine. Even an ordinary Tier 8 alchemist guru would find it difficult to successfully refine. Xiao Yan involuntarily smiled and continued after seeing Tian Hunja's hesitant expression. Leave this matter to me. Old Mr. Yao has helped me plenty. Now, I should reimburse you a little. No matter how one put it, Tian Hunja had indeed been Xiao Yan's a good assistant during this period. They had made an agreement in the past that as long as Xiao Yan helped refine a body that could accommodate Tian Hunja's soul, he would become Xiao Yan's guard for a year. Currently, 1 year's time was already up. Xiao Yan would naturally need to help him out a little more if Xiao Yan wanted the other party to stay. Moreover, he would likely have to head to the Hall of Souls to rescue Yao Lao very soon. At that time, it was naturally best for his lineup to be as strong as possible. By helping Tian Hunja raise his strength, it would raise their chances of success. This, saying thanks does not do such a big favor justice. The old me will remember this favor in my heart. Tian Hunja widened his mouth. His courteous words circulated in his mouth before being swallowed into his stomach. He nodded and uttered those words in a deep voice. Cuckoo, once I have rested a couple more days, I will try to help old Mr. Yao refine a fungus green pill before the pill tower manages to obtain any information. Xiao Yan grinned. He stood up and walked to his room. He said, it is already quite late. All of you should rest early. Inform me if the pill tower has any news. I might undertake a retreat for a couple of days. The little fairy doctor and the other two nodded when they heard his commands. Only Ziyin muttered some dissatisfied words related to a retreat within her mouth. Xiao Yan sat on the bed within a room lit with a warm light. He clenched his hand and a scroll appeared in his hand. It was the remaining 3 seals of the God Seal skill that Xun'er had given to him before she left. Xiao Yan's heart was clearly aware of the might of the God Seal skill, a full set of D-class high-level Dou techniques. Even if one were to split every seal within it, it would definitely still be stronger than ordinary D-class high-level Dou techniques. If the 5 seals were to stack on each other, its might would be comparable to a Tian-class Dou technique. By being able to become one of the ultimate skills of the Gu clan, it definitely did not possess an empty name. The God Seal skill was divided into 5 seals. However, Xiao Yan had only learned the first 2 seals. In the past, the might of the first 2 seals had been enough for him. However, as the experts he came into contact with became stronger, the Open Mountain Seal and the Sea Flipping Seal were gradually becoming clumsy. Hence, before he made the trip to rescue Yao Lao, Xiao Yan needed to learn the remaining God Seal skills. At that time, he would have gained some additional tactics. The scroll that Xun'er had left behind recorded the training methods for the last 3 seals, the Overturning Land Seal, Sky-Burying Seal, and the Ancient God Seal. With Xiao Yan's current strength, it was more than sufficient for him to practice the Overturning Land Seal, while it would be a little strenuous for him to practice the Sky-Burying Seal. He would be helpless to practice the final Ancient God Seal. Based on what was recorded on the scroll, seldom anyone managed to successfully master the last Ancient God Seal even within the Gu clan. From this, one could tell just how difficult it was to practice this thing. However, Xiao Yan was not greedy. He understood that one could not gain everything in one go. Being able to successfully learn the Overturning Land Seal and the Sky-Burying Seal was already enough to greatly strengthen his combat strength. Xiao Yan made up his mind within his heart. He did not delay any longer as he remembered all the information within the scroll in his mind, after which he slowly shut his eyes and began to form some unfamiliar and complicated hand seals in front of him. The level of the God Seal skill was quite high. It could also be considered one of the profound Dou techniques within the Gu clan. The difficulty in practicing it was quite great. Fortunately, Xiao Yan could no longer be considered a novice. He possessed the experience from practicing the first 2 seals. At this moment, he might not be able to successfully master the seals, but they would become familiar more quickly. A young man sat cross-legged within a quiet room. His hands continued to switch between numerous dazzling hand seals. While the hand seals changed, threads of strange ripples quietly spread from them. 5 days swiftly passed while Xiao Yan was practicing the God Seal skill. During this period of time, Xiao Yan had used the Overturning Land Seal and the Sky-Burying Seal countless numbers of times. During this training where he forgot to eat and rest as well as Xiao Yan's past experience, he gradually became familiar with the Overturning Land Seal. He also got a glimpse at the Sky-Burying Seal. Based on this speed, it was likely only a matter of time before Xiao Yan mastered them. This tireless training by Xiao Yan continued for 7 days. However, it was suddenly broken by the little fairy doctor. Just when he was rejoicing because he thought that the Pill Tower had managed to obtain news about Yao Lao, the little fairy doctor informed him that trouble had come knocking on his door. Xiao Yan was startled when he heard the little fairy doctor's words. A dark chill immediately flashed across his eyes. Profound Xian sect? The little fairy doctor slightly nodded. She softly said, "Moreover, quite a number of people have come. This time around, it looks like the chief of the Profound Xian sect wants to take your life for his son's life." Xiao Yan was expressionless. He got down from the bed and faintly said, "In that case, let's just see if he is qualified." Xiao Yan took the lead to walk out of the room after his voice sounded. The other party had stepped over their heads. If they were to choose to hide and not meet them, it was likely that the name of the pill-gathering champion would really become a joke.